Good evening, everyone. This is the Wednesday, January 7th meeting of the Rockport School Committee. We'll begin with introductions. Mr. Lorenz.
Mark Lorenz, committee member.
Nicole Altieri, School Committee Vice Chair.
Amy Oakes, School Committee Chair.
Good evening, Mark Branco, Superintendent.
Jessica DeLisi, School Committee Member.
Tammy Teitelbaum, School Committee Member.
And we wish everybody a happy new year. This is the first meeting of 2026. It's time for an approval of the minutes from our December 17th meeting. Those were in our shared drive. I hope everybody had a chance to see them. Are there any updates, changes, suggestions? So I'd be looking for a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
And all in favor? Aye. Great. That's unanimous. Thank you. Public comment. I don't believe I see anybody in the audience who's here for public comment. So I think that means we can go into correspondence. Dr. Branco?
None at this time.
All right. Donations, you do have an update?
So we do. So on the slide, draw your attention to a big thank you to multiple philanthropic donors at this point. So thank you to Cape Ann Savings Bank, who donated $3,000 towards our holiday basketball tournament, which was held in the Stephen Rowell Gymnasium over the holiday break. A big thank you to the Bank of Gloucester, who donated $4,816 toward the holiday hockey tournament that was held at the Dorothy Tablet Skate Rink, also over the break. Book Ethan Goes to Recess was donated to the elementary school library from Sue and Brian Hardy. And Rockport Ambulance Association has just recently donated 8 CPR mannequins, 4 brand new adults and 4 brand new babies, which is very helpful to us. So a big thank you to all of these community members for their support of our programs.
Thank you very much. That brings us to personnel.
None at this time.
Thank you. Share the success. I do not see our student.
No, he is tied up tonight. We did have a really solid, and it's only 3 days in. So we're sort of welcoming all faculty, staff, and kids back to school. It's busy already. The first day, I think we were walking around pretty exhausted after that first full day. So lots of stuff happening in classrooms. Winter sports are underway. Middle school theater is going into Tech Week this week and Production Week next week. So they're doing Matilda Jr., I believe, at the middle school. So please come out and see that. Not this week, but next week on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. We've come off some interesting DECA events, and I think they're going back out for the second or third time over the next, tomorrow they're going back out. So hopefully when Charlie comes back, we'll have some updates on how DECA's been doing out there representing us. So busy re-entry.
That is great. All right, that brings us to unfinished business. That is FY27 budget development. Dr. Branco.
So as we have traditionally done in my time here, we're going to carry some slides throughout every presentation so that the presentation builds for the public. So even though it might, the first few slides feel a little redundant for us or anybody who consistently comes to meetings, I want to acknowledge that if you're the public looking at this online or on the recording later for the first time, everything is going to be built iteratively over the next 2 or 3 or 4 meetings so that you'll have an entire package for our budget February 4th meeting. So this just kind of lays out the timeline that we discussed that takes us through our final approval on the 4th and our town meeting on April 11th. Just a reminder again for all of us that our budget really represents that large constituent of residents who cannot vote. So we are here to represent the children. And if this is the first time seeing this slide, this is our representative picture of one student from every grade pre-K to 12. So we thank them for taking this picture. And it cracks me up to see the size difference between our preschool and our 12th grader every time I look at this. We've been following a zero-based budget process for the past 4 years. We don't take anything lightly. We don't roll the numbers over based on just last year's numbers. We really take a hard look at as a leadership team and try to bottom out and build the budget from the bottom up based on the needs of our students, the needs of the district, and our long-term visioning. So that's how we're defining zero-based budgeting, which is a little different than some organizations do that work. Another reminder for the public that what we're really talking about publicly right now is the operating budget. We also have the capital improvement budget. Our capital improvement planning committee just recently met collectively with different town departments over the past probably week or two And we've all come together for our capital asks, and that particular process will come to fruition sometime in the next 3 or 4 weeks, I would imagine. And so I'll come back to the committee to give you an update on what the capital improvement planning committee has approved, and as a result, how we'll handle whatever needs we might have or not have after that process. A cheat sheet that is in the budget book, so I don't expect anybody to be able to read the right side of this slide, but it's just really there for a placeholder to know that when you get to the final budget book, for us that are looking for that cheat sheet, there's really a nice one-pager that explains the components of the operating budget that include the town contribution, our school reserve, which is circuit breaker, special ed transportation, school choice, user fees and grants, and that we have these other ways of having money come in through Chapter 70, capital improvements, special ed reserves, Medicaid reimbursements, and in this community, I continue to just celebrate the philanthropic lean that this community has in support for our public schools. So lots of donations and volunteers. So that all really put together builds our budget process. At our last meeting, we talked about an updated goal that we really are focusing on developing a fiscally responsible budget that aligns with our SDI and with our strategic planning and with our goals and our philosophies around how we want to set our kids up for success in the 21st century moving forward, and helping them to be as prepared as possible to be competitive for college, career, and service down the road. And as I pause on that one, it's just, I don't want to forget to say that we've talked a lot about the multiple documents that we have in the school district that we kind of lean on. So the budget book, in concert with the strategy for district improvement, you should see redundancy, and that is purposeful, and you should see one lean on the other. So when we put all of that work together as a leadership team, that helps us with the school committee support really drive the vision of the district, and gives us some financial foundation for our decision making and justification for the spend of the dollar. And I think that's an important thing to point out publicly. We've continued to try to budget for sustainable success, and we feel like we've responded well to this challenge. I have promised myself and the leadership team that sometime soon I will stop saying right sizing, because I'd just like to drop it from my vernacular. But right now it's historically relevant and not currently relevant. That's already nice to say at this moment in time. So we have been going through that process. We developed the FY 24, 25, and 26 budgets. We scrutinized staffing models, looked at our resource allocations that resulted in $343,000, $1 million, and then $1.4 million respectively in cuts. And 30 in the equivalent of 32 positions over time. So that is a lot of work, a lot of difficult decision making that has led us to a place where we feel confident about our current financial situation. And as this committee knows, but again for the public, it wasn't just about reductions and cost savings, but it was actually about growth and achievement as well, and moving the district forward. So this is sort of the short list of all of the things that, because we made those moves, we were able to support, add, enhance. And as you'll see tonight, in tonight's version of the budget, we're going to talk about more program staffing enhancements that I think this current budget bill will support and help us to continue to improve on the school district for the sake of our kids. So we have stabilized our position. Chairwoman Oakes was very careful to ask a question publicly at our last meeting, which was a fair question about how we're defining stabilization, right? And so just again, for the record, we're defining stabilization, financial stabilization, as this is the first time in a 4-year period that we are not in a position where we have to make major reductions, because the structure of our budget, in concert with a very supportive community that continues to vote to support our school budget, will put us in a really good position to build a strong FY27 budget. We will continue to have public conversations about long-term planning and about what FY28 and 29 and 30 will look like for the school district and the town, again, in collaboration. But right now, we're feeling on solid ground, and it's the first time the leadership team and I feel like right from the start, we can focus on growth and achievement in program and teaching and learning and the needs of kids without balancing that with the financial woes of running a large organization. So that's, I pause to use the word celebratory, but it feels pretty good right now from a leadership perspective, and the team's working really hard to maintain that vibe, so to speak. So what you're going to see on these new slides, and these are, please notice the bold drafting on this for everybody looking at this work, because these will be on the website tomorrow. This is the first draft. This is today. 2 weeks from now, the numbers could change. You're going to see second draft, and we'll talk through the changes. But this is the snapshot currently from where we are. So what we're going to talk about tonight are salary and wages and line item expenses in certain department areas, the district-wide lines, the elementary line, the middle high school line, and the special education line. At our next meeting, we'll then go into the other lines as well as all of our grant funding and paint a full picture. And then the intent is prior to the February 4th meeting, this committee will have an opportunity to review the entire budget book pre-meeting, and then the public will get a full disclosure on February 4th, and that's where we'll really do our full budget hearing on the 4th. So one more round of this kind of presentation that will be updated and changed, and then we'll come live with the budget book at the February meeting. So if you take a look at this, I'm going to have June come up, if she doesn't mind, just to answer questions and to help support. And then as we talk about programming, we'll also have Jody Goodhue and Anne Marie Luster join us, particularly if we have questions and comments or we want to have them add some substance to the conversations around special education and teaching and learning. So we've given you the history here just so you can see the growth or the reduction over time. The above salary and wages increase are really just a result of the contractual commitments that we have across the board, which is, pretty typical. We have it all public. We have 3-year contracts in place with both unions, and 1-, 2-, and 3-year contracts in place with all non-union members, depending on who the union member, the non-union member is. So that increase from 766 and change to 810 and change is really reflective of that. It's also very minusculely reflective of the fact that we reinstated the middle high school office clerk position. So if you remember, we had a retirement. The office clerk position was not filled about a year and a half ago at this time, and we went with just the greeter model at the front gate, so to speak, at the front door of the high school, middle school, and with the executive assistant or admin assistant at the front office. And we were struggling with back-end coverage. We were struggling with the workflow. So we have taken the person who was in that greeter position and elevated them into the office clerk position. So we didn't add a person. We brought the position back. The person who was in the other position got, obviously a pay increase to slide into the other slot. So they're really doing both jobs. They're actually sitting down doing the security greeter position, taking care of all of our attendance work, and staying in communication with, dismissals and school attendance issues. And at the same time, they're covering the backflow of the work of the middle school and the high school office. And again, that's just one of those operational things where you don't necessarily know the impact of a decision, maybe until you make it. And we watched it in real time for a little while. So I just wanted to make sure people understood that that's really the biggest thing. The other thing that's important to understand on this slide is that the special education line still includes the elementary school psychologist position. Fully intend to fill that position. It's going to get posted as soon as we can post it, and we really hope to do a really strong, thorough search for that position. We do value having our own people on staff for those kind of positions, as opposed, not that the contractors we've worked with are any less professional or qualified. It's just there's something about having your own people in place. So that's really our hope. So if you want me to pause on each slide, I'd be happy to do that.
Are there questions so far? We're all just still listening and processing.
Right. I'm good with that too.
Okay.
So the next slide will take us through the line item expenses for these departments, and these are the notes that really kind of, and if either one or both of you want to come up at this point just to talk through this part of the presentation and the next one, we can do that. The district-wide decrease really represents, it feels like it's really money moving to more appropriate lines. So we took the teaching and learning expenses and we moved them to the appropriate school levels, and that was done for accounting purposes, legal purposes.
Yes, so it's a direct student cost, so therefore it should be reflected in the schools, individual schools' budget. It really isn't a district expense, it's a direct learning expense for the children. So we've moved it over to where it belongs.
And am I correct in saying that it will also allow us to better track by
Most definitely.
by grade level, right?
Yes.
How that money is being spent for that purpose.
That's correct.
Okay. Also represents an increase in association dues and memberships and travels and conferences. For example, we're bringing in consultants a couple times a year for school committee trainings. We're going out to MASC. We have leadership team members who are going out to more conferences and taking advantage of professional development. And so we wanted to make sure that we have covered that cost.
Yes.
So whatever we budgeted for last year, I think what we found was we needed to
We
increase
needed
that
additional funds
based on historical.
for that.
Also connected to the school committee goal, my goal, and the goals of the leadership team, we have increased our advertising and our community outreach expenses appropriately, because now that we've done this for a couple of years, we know how much we're bringing in on advertisements versus how much we need to spend out of district expenses. So that includes in the loop, postcards, newspaper ads, School Spring is how we advertise positions. I'm not sure if I'm forgetting any at this time, but those are some of the examples of what comes out of that account.
Correct.
And an increase in our contractual retirement benefits, which the good news about proper notice is when we have a proper notice clause in there, we are able to better budget. So some years we're going to have 5 people retire, some years we're going to have nobody retire.
And for the benefit of folks who might not know what proper notice means, if I understand correctly, that's when a staff member meets a deadline early enough in the year and lets you know about their retirement plans so that you can take that shift into the budget. Is that what proper notice is?
Exactly what it
Yeah,
is.
thank you so much.
And just so you know, that amount isn't ballooned, it's just been restored to fiscal '25 level.
And can I ask a clarifying question? Is that about, if there's a retirement in say the high school, that cost for the retirement benefit shows up in the district-wide line?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a
Okay.
benefit that is considered a district line with the
Yeah,
state.
not the school line.
No.
Okay.
You would see the savings possibly in the school budget line.
If I may, I want to come back to special education, and Anne Marie, if you want to join us, that if you I don't know if you're going to want to respond. I don't know. But I bring this up just because this seems to come up in many different settings, the cost of special education. And so looking at this, I see that FY27 actually is proposed to be a smaller dollar amount than 26, 25, and 24. We've heard you talk about programmatic changes, and I just wonder if this might be a moment really quickly again to help people understand what's happened to reduce, everything else is getting more expensive. Are you a magician?
I love that title, but no. I think a lot of things have happened. One, our enrollment numbers are down, so that impacts special education as well. So we don't have as big a caseload as we have in the past. We've also, last year, DESE implemented what we're still calling the new IEP. And one of our reductions, we made a decision to move from mailing IEPs and IEP related paperwork, to electronic. So we email them through a secure portal through our Frontline eSped program. The pages are now landscape, so some IEPs could be 35, 45 pages, and we were sending 2 copies home per the regulations, and that was increasing our postage. So we decided to make that move to our digital online portal, which seemed to make more sense. We've also looked at our tutoring and contracted services. We looked at the legitimate number of what the cost was in the previous fiscal year, and rather than just carrying a number over, we've adjusted it so that it's accurate. So rather than leave a cushion or the what if, we're really, when we talk about truth in spending, and we're really looking at the numbers, and the numbers have gone down. And as we always say in special ed, that could change at any moment, but I think we're trying to do a much better job I don't want to say transparent, being more transparent, but we're really looking at each line item and what it's actually costing. And there may be other areas where those numbers are up, but other areas where they're down. And we'll see that when we go into the next cycle of discussion.
Did you want to add to that?
I just think, public finance is legitimately confusing for even those of us in public finance sometimes. So I do think for the public to understand, because we're budgeting the way we're budgeting, because we're not rolling numbers over, because we're not just saying, well, this is what we spent last year, so let's add 3% or 2%, because we're taking a deep dive. And when I say we, it's really all of them except me. I'm the reporter. I'm the one asking for the work to be done. But we've got great leadership team members who are digging into the numbers. And something, and it's not, I say simple. I know it's not simple. Simple is saying, how did you reduce office expenses, right? When a high-paid administrator who's in charge of meeting the needs of special ed students in a school district takes the time to look at how many envelopes we buy every year and how much paper we're using, like that's due diligence on finance. And so I think it's important to state that we're not penny pinching. We're trying to be as responsible as possible so that when we finally have a number, we can put it towards kids as much as we can.
There are so many costs that we can't control, that we don't have control over. So out-of-district tuitions, transportation, we don't have control over those. If we have a family that moves in that we pick up that out-of-district tuition. So there's so many things that we can't control that we decided to really focus on the things that we can. And so the office expenses was one easy area to really look at and analyze.
I raise this point because it's not a small dollar amount, and because, again, this topic comes up so frequently, and it's not often the case that we see projections that are lower, and it's so great to hear that technology, assuming it is equitably applied, that everybody can really get that IEP and has access to technology. It's just great to hear about those efforts that are underway because we know that we don't control all of our costs. And so I think any example of where you can be small and smart and strategic is good for us to just pause and point out. So I really appreciate the work behind those numbers. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments about this?
I was just going to emphasize what Anne Marie said. I think it's really important for the public to understand about special education that you sort of have these two things that are being balanced. One are the costs that you can control, and I think it's great for us to talk about all the ways that you're just controlling them down to the postage, and then to understand that there are all these costs that we do not control. So you're balancing these two things and getting kids what they need, deserve, and are legally entitled to, while at the same time trying to control everything we can. So when people see these numbers fluctuate, I just think that point that you made is very, very important for people to understand.
So the last slide feels a little redundant because it's really just the overview. It's the summation of the numbers, and the right-hand column, from a transparency standpoint, just shows you the overall increase of each of these concepts put together. So this committee is familiar with this slide because it'll be at the back of our full budget book. You're going to see the iterations of this from all the different departments. So I just chose to leave it in here just so you can see sort of the totality of everything come together. Really proud that we can have this conversation tonight, because every other year at the January meetings, we've continued to have much more difficult conversations, and we've not been able to be glass half full until the very last meeting, where by the time we get to that, it's hard to sometimes feel good about moving the district forward after you do the other hard work. So the fact that the leadership team can work together and put together a draft for you tonight of what we think are our programmatic and staffing priorities, so that you know when you review this budget and ultimately hopefully approve the budget that these are all of the things that are baked into that approval. So I do want all three people, whether it's Anne Marie, Jody, and June, just to be available for us to step us through, because each one of them sort of touches some of these at different times. And so the first one that's really fascinating that you and I just talked about off camera before we started is that if you remember last year, we added an intensive learning program, which is a specialized special ed program at the elementary school. The intent was to either bring some students back to our district who had been outplaced, or to keep some in who potentially would have had to have been outplaced, which would have been a shame because they wouldn't have been able to stay in their hometown, in their home school district, and go to school with their peers. So, you know, in her first year, Anne Marie, along with the help of some leadership team members and some really solid special ed staff members, you know, literally built a program as she transitioned into the job, and we've had really seriously strong results so far in a short period of time with that program. We're still working on it, and it will continue to get better, but Anne Marie will explain a little better than I can. There's a reason why, based on age and requirements in Massachusetts, that we are now in a place where we need to expand this program and have two based on school age brackets, a K to 2 program and a 3 to 5. So I won't read this all to you because you have it, but I'd like Anne Marie to kind of push on the why, or be here to answer any questions for you all. Maybe starting with the split, like the rationale
Sure.
between the two programs.
Sure. So when I first took the position, we had 4 students who, based on their profile, had a difficult time staying in the classroom. And so we decided to create what we're calling a flexible model, where students are in the classroom as often as possible. They come out for intensive programming. So it could be intensive reading, intensive math. It could be social emotional language. It could be any of those things. The goal is to keep them in the classroom and really be inclusive, not for the sake of inclusion, but really be part of that classroom. So we currently have 4 students in that K to 2 model. Next year we will have what by law, if the age gap for students in such a program is 48 months. So we will have a student on the upper end, and so in order to meet that child's needs and address some new needs that have been presented, we've decided to expand to another classroom for students in the 3 to 5. So it's the same model technically, but just at the higher level. Again, the goal is to be inclusive. Sometimes those students need to come out for breaks or for, like I said, for specific individualized intensive services, but they are part of that classroom as much as possible. So looking at the big picture, we talk a lot about out-of-district costs, and so we look at it as a win in 2 places. One, the financial, but for the families and the students, like they are part of our community. And by expanding to 3 to 5, we also acknowledge that we may need to take that program and morph it into 6 through 8, or a 9 through 12, or 12 plus, depending on the profile of child. So we're trying to look at the big picture and to meet the kids where they are in Rockport.
So a couple really important things to talk about. One is from an inclusion standpoint, Anne Marie and the team have gone as far as to even think about the K to 2 program, and will be on the same level as the other K to 2 classrooms and the 3 to 5. So that might, some of us just nod our head and go, well, yeah, that makes sense, but there's a strategic element to that, right? And some of us grew up in schools where that was not the case, and there were other students in other parts of buildings. So we've come a long way, not just in Rockport, but in general. So I think that's important to point out. And the fact that while we're increasing to 2 teachers and potentially 2 more paraprofessionals, all of that is being done with current staffing. So we're not actually adding any FTEs to the budget to get this done.
Correct.
We're once again taking a hard look at our staff and reallocating staff as needed and as determined by student needs.
Yep.
So we're not asking the town to give us more positions.
Correct.
Correct.
Sorry, Amy.
Yeah, let's pause and let's allow for some comments. Nicole?
Sorry, go ahead.
That was, I think Mark maybe addressed my question. It seems so great for kids, for families, and the flexibility piece. So within a district our size, how do you make it, like, what if next year the needs are, so is it the plan to kind of use current staff members and allocate people where it would be best?
Yeah, we're going to talk on another slide about, we're looking at our staff and our programming And for example, in the middle high school this year, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, but in the past, we've had a grade-based special ed liaison. So ninth grade, 10th grade, every grade had a special ed teacher. Now that our numbers are lower, their caseloads are lower, so we had an opportunity to really, we have some landmark trained staff who are special ed staff who really weren't being utilized to their strengths. And so in the middle high school, rather than look at grade-based caseloads, we looked at it from a perspective of a literacy, a math, social, emotional, that kind of thing. And so we strategically placed people where their strengths are. So for example, when I was a special ed teacher, math was not my strength, but I could go into a language class, so I dealt with humanities, and then my partner dealt with math and science. So that's sort of the model that we're taking, so that we can build a continuum of services, but also use our staff strengths to meet student needs. So we're looking to do the same at the elementary school. At our elementary school, when we do intensive reading programs, there are programs that our staff are trained in. So it could be trained in Wilson, or they can be trained in OG, which is Orton Gillingham. And that is not consistent. So you may have a first grade teacher who's OG trained, but then a second grade teacher who's Wilson trained. That doesn't make sense to me. Or we're looking at the impact of students per se, and consistent programming makes more sense. So we're looking at training, strengths, and then we will place based on that. So it may not be a kindergarten special ed teacher or liaison. It might be a K1 or 2, 3, or kind of like that. So,
Anne Marie, does this mean that it's possible that a child might have that same adult for more than 1 year?
it could.
Yeah, and the adult wouldn't have to get to know the child all over again at the beginning of the year.
At
And
the
when
middle high school, they've done looping, so they've had the same special ed teacher for 2 years to sort of help with that transition. So for our younger students, when, again, a whole other conversation, but when we're talking about the gap, and especially in the area of reading, that consistency, we're hoping, will help build skills and help close that gap a little bit.
Mark, you were going to ask a question.
Yeah, well, a comment, you would answer my question about no FTEs being added. But if this information is going to be in the budget book, I think it would be nice to have that clarified in there, because when I read this,
Right.
I put a big question mark by the one special educator being the addition.
So it absolutely will be. Just remember that this is draft one.
Right.
So
I'm just-
I wanted to make this
yeah.
broad and conversational. Draft two
Yeah.
will get tighter, and the
Yeah,
final
yeah.
book will be explicit.
Yeah, I just think it's an important point to
It
clarify.
definitely will be.
Yeah. And then a question about the students who are in the program, would they, if we did not have this program, would they be placed out of district, probably all of them?
Potentially.
Potentially,
I mean, I
yeah.
can't speak to that right now, but I think what I do know is that the older the child gets, the more challenging it is, because we don't have a cohort. Right now, we do have a cohort at the elementary, so it's not a singleton. It's not just one child. So we tend to send students out of district because they may be a one of a certain profile, and we don't have the capacity to meet those needs. So the older students get, that could be possible, but right now, if we looked at our profile, we do have a cohort at the elementary. So we would not be creating a program for one student. Consistently, it would be 3 to 5, moving up as together. Yeah.
Are there other comments, Jess?
I just had a comment, based on a comment you made about inclusion, not just for being inclusive. And I just appreciate that so much, because you hear inclusion and oftentimes people just think it means putting a kid in the same room as other kids. And it's so much more than that. So I loved that. Thank you.
I just I'm sorry I go on, but if I'm not sure sometimes if people understand how powerful it is for a child to be able to be educated right here at home, because we know that when children get to go to their local school, then they get to have their friends who are in the neighborhood in the same local school, right? And it's such a big deal for a family. And I know it's a victory for families when children have been out of the district and they get to come back. It's a really big deal. So anything that we do to allow children to come to their neighborhood school. It's not just good for the budget. It's so good for them, and it's so good for families. For a child to be able to walk or get dropped off or ride a bus here, as opposed to getting on a bus and going somewhere else, it's just very, very positive. And I suspect many, many people really value the work that goes into making that possible for students and their families.
Anne-Marie kind of hit this one already, so that's okay. You might as well just stay right there, right? So this is really, again, her department's taken a lot of time to look at the ability to reallocate specialized staff. I think any organization does this if they're a high-functioning organization who has multiple skill sets, who has different licenses, who has the ability to professionally do multiple things. Those people are invaluable to successful organizations and companies. What's interesting in Massachusetts is we have licensure, and then we have this other nomenclature category called highly qualified, right? So highly qualified means I've done other things other than the license. So, for example, when Anne-Marie alluded to herself as a literacy person from her days of teaching, and her partner might have had a math lean, it might be because maybe that person just had been a really great math student, or had taken undergrad math classes beyond the typical college programming, or had had 10 years supporting elementary or middle or high school math programming, which over time allows you to become what's called highly qualified in the state of Massachusetts. So we're looking at licensure, we're looking at certifications, skill sets, professional development training, for example, in OG and Wilson, and we're also ultimately looking at someone's highly qualified abilities to support certain content areas. Because if my kid struggled in a certain subject area, I would want to know that the person supporting that child in that subject area had a skill set and a knowledge base, and dare I say, a passion or a belief that it's an important subject. Again, I applaud the department for doing this and for taking a look at this. And again, for the staff members who, once again, are going to endure change and are going to be asked to be flexible, and who might not know it all yet, that, they're going to be asked to do something different next year. And so, that's part of being a great team member, and a great staff member, and a really strong educator. So I applaud everybody involved in this work. And kids will benefit from this. Any thoughts on this one? I think you've...
Is that more related to? Sorry, is that more related to the elementary school? Probably.
Mm-hmm. Because
Schools sort of gone through that.
Middle high school are doing that now. We have, for example, teachers teaching executive functioning skills, organizational skills course. We have some teaching math, some teaching English, and they are grouped by sort of those strengths. Yeah. So this would, yes, trickle down, so to speak.
We've talked about social emotional learning a lot, and about what the needs are, what the requirements are, and what the practical application of this work looks like. This takes at least 2 people to do this one, maybe 3 or 4. So this is not soft skills. This is real human being skills. And so, in a time where more and more human beings, not just children, are being diagnosed with anxiety, and more people are finding life in the world difficult, it's really important that we're taking care of our students' social and emotional health. So I'll stop pitching it to you in a minute, but just to know that this is really focusing on our need to finally adopt a screening tool, which you've heard about a couple times, and to adopt a district-wide SEL curriculum. Could be different curricula at different schools or levels, but it will be district approved and district wide. So I'll get out of the way and let these two kind of talk us through this.
Well, and I appreciate that, because the screener is not a human being. It's a tool. It's a thing. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a diagnostic assessment. So we have our academic benchmarks, and all of the assessments that we take to be able to get the diagnostic data on the kids for academically. Behaviorally, we have that data from discipline data and or attendance data. But for social emotional, we have no data. We haven't had that for a while. So Anne-Marie and I have written a joint goal for the next 2 years to, solidify our whole multi-tiered system of support framework and make sure that the three umbrellas of academic, behavioral, and social emotional are all included with the tier 1, 2, and 3 supports in place. So we've pulled together a social emotional learning team of all the counselors and the psychologists and the administration to meet. We're meeting about every other month to talk about their needs, what they're missing, and what the best kind of curricular programming and screener will be. So we'll purchase that screener this year. From grant money, and we'll be able to implement that going next year. So we're looking at a couple of different ones. Anne-Marie's found some, I've found some. So we should have more answers on that moving forward. But, between Anne-Marie's piece of this plus the teaching and learning plus the grant money, we should be able to really round out that MTSS system, which includes the WIN model as well. So there'll hopefully be supports in WIN for social emotional services as well. There's some now, but it's not really as data-based.
When we do diagnostic testing in math or reading, that is a tier 1, sort of tier 1 support. That information, once analyzed, moves students to tier 2. And so 80%, the majority of students should be getting tier 1, a smaller amount get tier 2, and then tier 3. So tier 2, this will also help us think about what we need to implement in terms of that social emotional learning.
We now have a much better handle on what our instructional support team, our IST model is and how it works. And we've spent a lot of time pulling all the documentation together and making sure that the process and the protocols are all in place. And I think we're doing a better job of tracking that, which actually helps Anne-Marie with reporting to the state as well.
Let's pause for questions or comments.
I was just curious, once we have the screener and it's being implemented, is it something that will be used on all students or students that are identified? Like, how will that work?
What we look at mostly is usually 3rd through 12th grade. And it's the students fill out the surveys instead of the teachers filling out for them, which can be a little bit biased at times. But none of them that I've found go lower than 3rd grade. So everybody 3rd grade and up would take that screener. This is that screener, if you remember, that parents do have the ability to opt out of this one screener if they don't want to. So as soon as we have that in place, we can give you more information about what it looks like and what the opt-out will look like as well.
Thank you so much. I feel like we've been down this road. We've been like halfway, quarter of the way, 3/4 of the way down this road over the years. And so thank you to everyone that's, sort of making this a priority. And I'm assuming, like, when you're looking at them, are there other districts that you've found that use some of the screeners that you're looking at that you can kind of say, like, get feedback from them, like real life sort of feedback about how it's working? And how does that kind of work?
Yes, and Anne-Marie has a lot of different connections to other directors of student services to talk about what they use, but we're looking at things. What's going to be really important to us is being able to export that data out of the system to put it into analytic view, so that's one that rounds out all the data in one place in our data visualization dashboards.
I have a question, and I don't really know how to ask it or how you might answer it, but
Ask away.
I'll give it a shot. And it seems like a time to bring this up with talking about this screener and social emotional learning, and we've talked about staffing priorities and moving people around. I'm just curious what conversations you've had or how you might be able to talk about the need of more counselors or social worker in the school. Do you feel like that's something that is needed? Do you feel like this might be something that, based on how the screener is going to go, it might be something in the future? Or what are some conversations?
I
that
believe
happen?
we both feel we definitely have the right staff with the right certifications in place now. The name of our counselors has shifted for the most part to all school counselors. Some are social workers, some are adjustment counselors, some are guidance counselors. But we have 4 counselors at the high school level, 2 counselors at the elementary school level, our psychologist at the middle high who is doing the work of 1.5 at the moment, and then contracting out, and we'll still have, hopefully add that psychologist at the elementary school as well. Between that and our intensive learning program, our TLC, Therapeutic Learning Center program, and middle school one,
TSS,
which stands for?
Therapeutic Support Space.
I just couldn't remember that one. Between
close my eyes to think
those
about it.
liaisons are skilled in those areas as well with the BCBA. I think we have enough staff for that to support this area. We just need the right data
And,
to
and
track
just so that
it.
you know, it's not odd to bring that one up, but we actually talk about this more, I think, at central office and with principals than a lot of other topics. You know, when we first did the first round of budget cuts here, we let a counseling position go, and we used data, we used the national norms, we used the state norms, we used size of class and said, you know, based on the 250 or whatever that number is, I don't have it off the top of my head, per counselor model, we were high. Right now, whether we're high or not, we don't think it's appropriate to make another move. And we, trust me, it's been an ongoing conversation about not having the psychologist who's on our staff, what the counseling team does and doesn't look like. And we've plenty of people that are here tonight or not here tonight have advocated heavily to maintain that level of staffing until we get programming in place, until we get a much broader continuum of coverage and services for students in this area.
And I think the screener, too, will help us sort of on that path. So when you look at the big picture, we brought, as I spoke about at one of our last meetings, we had Ann Donovan here looking at our social emotional and therapeutic programming. And so this also overlaps into that area. So her feedback will help us in that area. But that's really why we want to make sure that we keep that elementary school psych position, because, you know, based on the screener, we may find that there are needs that we need to address. And so right now, we believe that those needs can be met with the staff that we have. But I guess time will tell, but, you know, that's
And
that's
Anne Marie,
the philosophy.
Anne Marie's
Anyway.
done a lot of work at looking at the counselors and their caseloads and who's supporting service delivery for an IEP need versus who's supporting the general population. So that's something that's going on as well.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I wasn't questioning anybody's qualifications of whether they've been used. It was more about just, do we have enough
Right. Yep.
to
Yep.
address student needs? Yeah, that's
Yep.
what it was, yeah.
Yep.
Are there other questions? I have just one clarification question for folks who might not know, including me. If we were looking at a reading curriculum, we would have state standards to guide us, and there would be materials approved by a statewide committee that we would go and choose from. Am I correct that in this situation, there aren't state standards, nor will there be state-approved curricula? Is that right? And are districts kind of out there on their own to go and find this?
Yeah, Castle is the, right. You want to talk about?
I don't know that I can tell you
So
what CASEL
this
stands
summer,
for.
when we went to a DESE training, and they are working on exactly this, but all of their materials currently reference the Castle model.
So that's a national organization. You might,
Yeah.
but this is a national organization that leads in this work. So many districts who are either ahead of us or right where we are have leaned on the CASEL standards. So while they're not coming out of DESE, they're nationally normed. They are research based. And so right now, I believe that that's where a lot
That
of
is what
districts
it
are
is,
going.
yeah.
CASEL is CASEL, so something social emotional learning. I can't-
If you didn't ask, we'd know.
Yep.
It's one of
That's
those
okay.
situations.
I don't need every single detail. I just mostly wondered, are you out there on your own, or do you have something that guides you and
And all the screeners are similar that way, where they address those standards that.
Yeah, there's specific competencies for social emotional learning, and they'll tell us where the areas of strength and weakness are.
Oh, I
based
bet
on
they
those
will, and I bet they'd
competencies.
like to sell them to you, and then sell them a subscription and a big contract
That's
as
why
well.
it's a long process.
Yes, as it should be. And if I'm correct, there will be a financial component to this. At some point, you'll be back to talk to us about the cost of the screener and the cost of the curriculum and training.
Yeah, and right now we believe we have the cost of the screener covered for next year
For
in the
grants.
grant money that we have
We
currently.
planned,
We
yeah.
planned to purchase that already.
So I'll keep Jody up here for this one. We continue to expand our computer science and engineering program at the high school. When I first came in, and we did sort of the data sort on what we were strong at and where we were gapped from a curriculum standpoint. Those of us who were here at the time, we were not competitive in this area as a small high school. We are quickly becoming competitive and even in some cases getting ahead. Jody will talk us through this. We continue our partnership with Project Lead the Way, and we will be adding new courses over a 3-year period of time that this budget and the next 2 iterations of the budget will support.
So when we started with Project Lead the Way, that came from the old ESSER funds, the COVID funding, and it was really kind of a jump in both feet and go with it. And since then, we've been able to get more competitive grants to help us. And Project Lead the Way also has a connection to the Mass Learning Project, which supports their curriculum and instruction. Amazing professional development, and then the 1-8 Foundation, which does all of these grant fundings for high quality instructional materials, which they feel Project Lead the Way is. So what we will be able to do in the upcoming school year is have a computer science pathway at the high school level. So you have computer science essentials, computer science principles, and then you can take a capstone. Or an engineering pathway with intro to engineering, principles of engineering, and then the capstone. So we'll have a capstone course that's co-taught by the computer science teacher and the engineering teacher. So kids are able to do a year-long capstone research type project in that area to fill out that 3-year pathway. That's already in place. That's based on the grant funding that's coming from 1-8 still for this year. In the middle school, we were able to add the gateway courses for all 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and they all had one experience each year. So they were semester courses, so there would be half and half. We're looking to double that, and we're going to do that over time. So we did have to add computer science for innovators and makers this year to fill out a gap in scheduling for electives. So we're going to add automation and robotics next year, the year after medical detectives, and then design and modeling. And this is all based on recommendations from Mass Learning Project of what the best pathways are. This connects to what we talked about at the last meeting in terms of career and tech ed and what is our middle school pathway. We have our own courses here. The kids do not have to go out to get these kinds of pathways. This has been really great to watch with the partnerships with the grants, because the two, Eric Sabo and Ali Favaza, have been amazing and jumping in, and the kids are now doing student solves, which are problem-solving projects in the classroom that they are on the screen with an industry person helping them build projects and vote on how well they did. They're doing Industry Connects, where they sign up and an industry professional comes into a classroom and helps them with a project. And they're doing Student Solves, which will come up in May again. They're going to everything that we ask them to go to, and the kids are really starting to talk about this. We got a lot of feedback of what works for them and what doesn't, but this will also, the medical detectives will give us a kind of a pathway into that human body system, so biomedical research. We'd like to then look at adding a precursor at the high school level to human body systems. That's a really advanced honors course. So if there were one more, we would be able to get more kids into that pathway if they had an entry point for that. So that's basically what's happening with the computer science and engineering program.
And one of the conversations we continue to have in a small school district around class size, in bigger school districts, they have interesting conversations around, we don't run the course if it has less than X amount of kids. We're most likely never going to say that. We might have a debate around one child and what an independent study could look like. And even in that case, I'd like to say that we can take care of that one particular student. But in this case, I care more that this small school district is powerful and can offer a really broad menu of high-end opportunities that prepare kids for college, career, and service, as opposed to it's 4 kids here or 4 kids there. We will continue to work to redeploy staff. We will continue to train staff and maximize them so that they're fully covering our kids based on need. But I do see, I do see a real pathway for the first time here, and it exists in math, and it exists in science, and it exists in ELA, and it exists in social studies. So this gap being filled, and now from a 6 to 12 lens, is fascinating. And we know that we've got a very strong philanthropic donation that came in to help us address elementary kids, and Mr. Swanson came here for that. So the amount of hands-on computer science engineering work that our students are going to be doing in this district compared to what was being done just 5 years ago is pretty impressive. So again, I thank everybody who's pushed on this work, and for our teachers, some of whom had baseline knowledge but a real will and desire, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we were able to create a department too, a K-12 department of computer science and engineering who meet once a month together now. So it's not out of the question that we wouldn't see this go down into Project Lead the Way launch at the elementary school. We just have to figure out between science class and technology class how do we fit that in, and where does it fit, and what would make sense. So that's, and in the exploration phase, and having Larissa de Benedette go out to other areas who have them. Amesbury is probably the one that we're going to go out and take a look at their elementary program.
Comments? Nicole?
I feel like I have a lot to say tonight.
It's good.
Do you feel, I know in the past there's maybe been some issues with schedule, because we are such a small school, with scheduling and access. Do you feel like with the changes in the master's schedule, it's sort of increased access to these to anyone that wants to take them?
It did increase
most.
access. Almost every single middle schooler, unless they have some other area of need where they have to have services, is taking at least one Project Lead the Way class per year. This will give them 2 opportunities. It'll increase the opportunities. There are 2 classes per year they can take, so it gives a better rounded out option of electives going forward. 6th grade's a little light on their options right now, so between the foreign languages and the computer science and engineering, I think the schedule plus this makes it easier for kids to have better choices.
As students, I mean, those of us who have raised kids and worked with kids know this, as they get older, they get more refined in hopefully, in their pathways, right? So by the time the kid's a junior or even a sophomore sometimes, they voted certain things off the island except the requirement side of that area, and they double down on other areas, whether it's 4 music classes or 2 engineering classes and a 2 science class. Like, that's what the state is encouraging high-performing school districts to do. Early and often to talk about pathways to success. Doesn't mean you make a decision in 6th grade that I'm going to be a doctor or a lawyer or a mechanic or whatever. It just means eventually you're going to find your path. Might not be the same one, as many of us know, that you start on, but it is actually research-based, helpful to help kids figure that out. And this is kind of cool to see it kind of come to fruition.
I think I know the answer to this, but I think it bears asking for the benefit of anybody who might not be in the room, but who's listening later. Do you still have choir, orchestra, band, art? Those things often get smushed to make way for this. It just seems fantastical that we've been able to add all this while maintaining
There's
fine arts
band,
and performing
there's
arts.
jazz band, there is small ensemble, there is symphonic band, there is orchestra, there is chorus.
That
There is
staffing
also
has
an added
stayed the same,
theater production course and a songwriting course as well.
Yeah.
So
They were
yeah.
talking about sound recording, and I'm going to get the percentage wrong, but I'm going to guess anyway, just because I think I'm close. We saw, I believe, almost 70%, or even maybe higher than 70% of the student body performing on stage in our winter concert. So as a recovering high school band director, what we were told by the state was if you had 10% of your student body in performing arts, you were doing a good job. 10%. So we're not going to have less kids in this particular community performing or creating at all. If anything, and this harkens back to my college jazz days, we used to go out to the New England College Jazz Festivals when I was a young pup, and MIT used to destroy us in the jazz competitions every year because there's a lot of correlation between musicians and high-end science thinkers. So you're just expanding both sides of your brain and your creative juices, and you're not going to see any of that happen. And again, kids will make decisions. They might decide to take one semester of one versus two, and we're flexible. Just because you can't take the course doesn't mean you don't get to sing in the concert if you can find a way to get to some rehearsals. So we'll meet the needs of kids.
Just side comment. I think it might be, maybe one of the editions of In the Loop coming up. It might be really nice to make these pathways, like, really out there, and knowing how involved in your word fantastical. Like, I love that word to describe this. It's really amazing to me that we can add these and add some of the performing arts. Like, to me, that's incredible, and I think we need to be really proud of that. Yeah.
We probably don't have a lot of questions on the next two, but I want to make sure they get in here. So we continue to build budgets year over year, and June helps to make sure we can do this properly without, robbing Peter to pay Paul from one line to another, that we continue to increase funding for curriculum review and adoption. We're trying to have a viable 5-year cycle. Jody's doing a great job corralling that beast and putting us in a position for that. Every year, good or bad, everything in the world gets more expensive. So even if we have a 3 or 5 year plan, it's going to cost more the next time you roll that out.
Well, and you might not adopt something new, but just the process of having a curriculum review is so powerful to allow people to talk about what works and what doesn't work, and for that not to be in place just doesn't seem right. So good for you.
Yeah, thank you. It's not always adoption. I mean, It could be that, which is the case coming up. We've got some that are reviewing and might actually be happy with what was adopted 3 years ago, but we still do our due diligence on the product and on the implementation of it. Similarly with professional development. We continue to try to provide really high quality professional development in-house and to provide a budget through contract and through other mechanisms that allow us to support the professional development of our professional staff. Really proud to say that we did solidify our partnership with Southern New Hampshire University. Jody and I have created a course around equitable grading, and we already have four staff members.
We put it out at 9 a.m. this morning. We have 4 staff members signed up.
Registered. So we are teaching. We are co-teaching a graduate level course in-house. Teachers will be able to either get a full compilation of 67 point something PDPs,
67.5 PDPs, or 3 graduate credits if they pay for those credits through SNHU.
And in most cases, they can use their tuition reimbursement contractual line to do that. So we hope it'll go well, and then we hope we can continue this partnership with SNHU to develop more courses so that it's not just Jody and I teaching, but other people would be teaching. And in a perfect world, if we get 2 or 3 that are robust and solid, we could open it up and get teachers from other school districts to pay tuition, and it becomes a revenue source for us and a PD opportunity for our teachers. So that's sort of the big picture hope.
Similar to the March PD Day, where we have staff sign up to teach
Any area of interest or strength.
Right. So, for example, we, like last year, it was having difficult conversations, or it would be equitable grading, or it could be special ed related, or it could be anything. But we have our staff teaching and other staff that you can sign up. So part of that conversation is that if we, in year 2, if we do as well as we did year 1, then considering like looking, and maybe Gloucester has a PD day, or Ipswich has a PD day, or Hamilton Wenham, and we work together to kind of do that.
And we have some really good connections for that now with the collaborative PLCs that we've been running for the specialist. They are starting their second round of those on January 16th, so every group of specialists will be going out or coming to Rockport to do that group again. So they have been reaching out, sending us their family engagement nights, and that's something we hadn't thought of, so we can send that out to their parents as well when we run ours. So we're making some really good connections in that area as well.
So we've had a lot of conversations as a leadership team around this one. It originally came out of a conversation about what curricular areas do we still feel like we're not, 100% hitting the mark on. that quickly turned into, if that's the case, and if we have a budget that constrains all organizations ultimately, and a staffing that that has limitations, how do we provide certain learning opportunities for students? It's 2026. The brick and mortar model is not dead yet, but it's very flexible at this point in time. So I know. Listen, I'm right there with you. But many of us have learned and worked in a virtual learning opportunity. Everybody from our attorneys to our plumbers to our doctors to our graduate students are taking asynchronous online programming. So part of my belief as the educational leader in the community is I would like to someday be able to say every student who's graduated from this school district has taken at least one online course. Whether they want to become an EMT or a postman or serve in the military, they're going to take online courses, and they're going to take online professional development, or there's going to be a competency exam sitting at a computer that gets sent to some national sort system. So I think it's a skill set, and I think there are some people who are highly intelligent in certain areas who don't test well in certain types of testing, whether it's paper and pen, whether it's computer, whether it's authentic. So I just think we need to close that gap. So what I've learned from us in a short period of time in 4 years is if we put it in writing, in a lot of places, we're more apt to get it done. So I pushed on this one a little bit. We've talked about world language. We have talked about specialty elective courses. We do have students who have taken American Sign Language through this model and some other courses through this model. I don't know that we have the capacity to add a full-time or half-time Mandarin teacher or anything like that, but there are opportunities out there, and we already have contracts with 2 organizations, right? I'm not going to name them.
VHS Learning and EduSeer.
Thank you. So we have them, and we need to do what we think is a better job through our course of studies and a better job through our work with our school counselors when kids are doing course selection to make sure that they and their families are informed that these are actual viable options in our school district. This dovetails with a really big project that's also on this list. So questions or thoughts about this?
That's already budgeted too. This should be known that, yes, that is
Thank you.
already in the budget.
Thank you.
I would say that this makes me think about the SEL curriculum because there's something about managing your time and self-regulation that allows you to be successful in an online asynchronous learning environment. I can't believe I can even say that. Asynchronous online. For people out in the viewers, asynchronous means we all do it at different times. Right. Students have to be really focused and on the ball to get this done and to meet those deadlines. And you're absolutely right. You can't operate a small watercraft in the Commonwealth without taking some kind of safety course and passing a test. And I'll let you know how it goes. You have to be able to do this stuff. And I think students are absolutely going to encounter this, whether they're going into their trades, going to community college, going to a university. You have to be able to do this, and it's not optional any longer. And I think there was a time when we saw this as, oh gosh, really tiny places have to rely on online stuff, and you kind of wonder if that's okay. And I think it's almost like cell phones, where we've come 180 degrees in the way we think about, should you have a cell phone in school, yes or no? Should you take an online course? Is that a good thing? Is that an ad for our children? Or is that like, oh, I had to do that online? I think so much of this has to do with the way, certainly the quality of the online curriculum, but also the way it's framed and the way it's supported by teachers who are here and staff who are here. So I appreciate pushing on this.
You envision if this is being the thought about it being expanded, you envision it happening in school, like during a free time where they go to the library and do it?
Yeah.
Or
yes.
is it possible to do it over the summer if a student wanted to push themselves and do it at home as an extra course?
So it's probably yes to all of them.
Yeah.
Some of our students have what they call a PLC to do their online course. So in the past, if we had student taking the American Sign Language course or World Religions course, they had what on their schedule it was called PLC, so Professional Learning Community, and they'd have the opportunity to go to the library or some quiet space to do the work during that time.
The thing we talk about a lot is equitable access, right? So when you talk about equitable access in a perfect world, everything can get done within a 6.5-hour school day. We know that that's not reasonable. So some kids and families might say, is there a summer semester through EduSeer or VHS? And if there is, and they're committed to that, then we support that. Some will say, I'll take the extra class. Don't give it to me during PLC. I don't want to skip out on band for whatever that need to drop was. So I think I want the answer to continue to be, we're going to be as flexible as we can to provide the students with their opportunities, but it's got to be through a lens of equity and access.
And I think I heard you say, and this is already in the budget. These are subscriptions that we budget
that
for.
we've been utilizing.
We're going to do
for
better with what we
quite
have.
a few years now.
Yeah,
but
great.
It's an expansion, but it's within the membership that we already have. There is room for expansion without additional cost at this current time.
I think sometimes we offer things and we just don't do the best job of making sure everybody understands that we have to offer it too.
Yeah.
So it's marketing, sadly, right? That connects to this one. So in our winter retreat, we had sort of an off-agenda conversation about areas in the school district that we as a leadership team and as a school committee think need some love and attention, quite honestly. If you've ever been in the library, in that physical space at the middle high school, it is probably not the most desirable part of our campus. And it's, let's just leave it at that. It is not, a robust, engaging, inviting, meet the needs of 2026 students or staff for that matter space. And so that's a daunting task to think about. But when we talk with the Capital Improvement Committee and we talk with the town and our own budget constraints about how we can best improve our instructional spaces, this should be the hub of a school. It is absolutely not. It's not a person's fault. It's not a particular programming issue. It's just happened over time. And this is where we are. And so, again, if we put it in writing, if we connect it to budget work and to strategic planning, we think that we will get it done. It might not get done. It might take 2 to 3 years to get there until it's unveiled to where we're happy with it. But really, we want a modern library feel where there's no branding yet, right? We have placeholders, learning commons, media centers, Center for Creativity and Innovation. I am a branding person. I think it's important to talk about the purpose. So we at this table and other situations have talked about putting together a committee or a study team that's representative. So that's not spelled out here, but that's what we think we're going to propose, is that starting in September, the leadership team will come together and talk about what that looks like, and we'll have a programmatic and facilities redesign study group probably that will have a representative from school committee, a couple representatives from the leadership team, clearly representatives from the faculty, maybe a student from middle school and a student from high school, and a couple community members who are really engaged in this work from a philosophical standpoint, a philanthropic standpoint, and who are really on board with helping us make this happen, because the funding is going to have to come from multiple areas to get this done. And what I see and what we see in my head, what they see in my head, is really a blank canvas. We have a lot of square footage that we can work with, and what is that going to look like in a couple of years? And so it's a big one, not spelled out in here, but ultimately, Mark, it will be spelled out in the final book, is that we, and I hopefully I'll be able to tell you this at the next meeting, we would like to squeeze one FTE somewhere out of the budget, because if you recall, we made that library cut in my first year when we were struggling with budget cuts, and we went down to one library campus-wide, librarian campus-wide, and one paraprofessional who kind of floats under that librarian. If we're going to do this right, we do believe as a team that we need a professional staff member taking the lead. We don't know what that title is yet. We don't know if that's actually a librarian. We don't know if that's a technology instructor. We don't know if it's someone with a unique double skill set. We don't know if it's someone with more of a literacy and a tech lean. We just know we want to hold an FTE, and that we want to do backwards design, so that once the committee or the study group does the work and helps us as a leadership team figure out the physical space and the programmatic needs, that will help us determine what the right hire is. Does that make sense?
Let's pause and have some thoughts, comments.
I feel like I remember back when we were having these discussions about the elementary school library and when that whole redesign happened, and it was just really energizing for so many different parts of the school, from technology to literacy to the kids were excited, the families were excited. It was really exciting project. So this is kind of, the next big step of that. And I think that it's really exciting to think about, and thinking about that space sort of being a hub. And right now it's, 1985 called for their library. But I think that it, like you said, it's happened over time, and this is just really exciting to think that so many different people will sort of have a voice in what will happen with it next. So exciting.
It's really easy when you love your school to think that everything is okay. But this is one part of the building that I just personally feel pretty strongly about. I think this is transformational work. I think this space can be a really powerful center of learning, not just for students, but for adults as well. I could be wrong, but I suspect that the community, our students, our philanthropic community, will want to get engaged in this and will be excited. And I am sure there are wonderful places to go out and visit to see what a real, we used to talk about a 21st century space. It's almost like we need we're a quarter of the way through. We need more than a 21st century space. And students deserve this. When they leave us, they are going out into a world that is radically different from the way some of the spaces in our community and in our schools feel. And I think this is absolutely the right work. And I just think about how many years of getting things squared away you and your team have engaged in. And I, at least, just with my little eyes from the outside looking in every 2 weeks, I can see things starting to move. I see changes in special education. I see changes in master schedule that allow for more access for students. I see a focus on online learning. I see this build out of Project Lead the Way. And now I see a focus on a space that should be a really exciting learning space. And we're not afraid of that. We're not sitting here saying we don't have enough money. Instead, we're going to say this is absolutely the right work to do for children and for teachers, and they deserve it. And this is a community that rises to the occasion when people have great ideas, and we see that all around us in Rockport. And so I think it's a good sign that your team has the capacity to think forward and to think like this, and that you don't all put your head down and go, oh my gosh, I can't just think of, we can't do one more thing. This is what it's all about. It's making sure kids have the very best that we can do within a reasonable budget. So,
and Monty's sitting in the back.
great.
Monty's sitting in the back tonight. So did I just beat you to it? You say it if you want to say it. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's important to note that although we need a committee and we need to study and we need to plan, that with the support of Monty financially and in other ways, we do have one project in the works already. So there will be an operational podcast studio in that middle high school library space before the end of this year. So that will build the enthusiasm for the kids and the staff to be able to move this project forward. So he's working on that and on a makerspace for the elementary school.
And we are right in the middle of the beginning of our relationship with 1623 as well. Jody and I have the first In the Loop podcast in the can, as they say in the industry. We have to listen to it and make sure we're good with it, and then soon we will come back to you and let you know that it's been launched and it's out there. And so between the technology department support, 1623, and putting together a study team, we're going to see change as soon as this school year in small ways, but over time it'll be big change, I think.
Yeah, I just really encourage the team to push, to push past the makerspace, to push past the podcast, the green screens, those things that we've seen now for 15 years in public ed around this country.
It's not here.
And then I think about places that leapt right over telephone wires and went straight to cell phones and cell towers, and it was terrible when there was absolutely no technology. But sometimes you leap over things that other places have done. So I just think there's a real opportunity to leap and to do great things for students. I really appreciate the work of the staff.
For the first night of budget conversations, it's a lot. We'll have more line item conversations in 2 weeks. We'll have a much better understanding of them in totality. I don't see the programmatic and staffing priorities actually being tweaked that much. I mean, maybe we wordsmith them for the book, right? But other than that, I think the team's done a really nice job of saying this budget will support these priorities. We're confident. Again, we're not fans of putting programmatic and staffing priorities out there that we can't make happen. So we are confident that we can make these happen either in a year or a 2 or 3 year time period.
One last thing. I appreciate breaking this into chunks to be able to slow down and to talk about program by program or part by part by part. In past years, it's felt more like a fire hose, and this, it's a lot. It's in depth, but I appreciate the pace of the presentation. Thank you.
So in your drive, you have a full copy of a Chapter 70 advocacy memo. As you know, I'm a member of the North Shore Superintendent Roundtable. That's the roundtable for all 27 or 31 superintendents on the North Shore. My colleague from Pawtucket Regional School District, Justin Bartholomew, very, very bright educator, spearheaded this work out of our ongoing frustrations around the Chapter 70 formula and on the perception of the state that it is still not as broken as it is, and that we believe we need as much evidence as possible. So he took the lead with some of my financially leaning colleagues to put together an advocacy document. They held, DESE held a public hearing where they were looking for public testimony on this particular topic. And so what you have in your drive is a 4-page advocacy document that talks about how the formula's outdated measurement is really not providing communities with what they need. There's a real strong lack of transparency and understanding. This formula was designed in 1993. It just cannot meet the needs of 2025 and now 2026. And there have been no changes since 1993. So that's my entire career. My entire career has been 32 years, and in 32 years, the state has not even been proactive at all in addressing this. And I dare I say, I don't think I'm going out on a limb publicly with that statement. That and the fact that the special education is the most significant structural failure in the formula. And the numbers and the cost, they increased their cap from 3.5 to 4%. It's nothing over time. It doesn't really even meet the needs, yet we still see out of district placement costs rising, transportation costs rising. So we have community members who ask us, they ask the select board, they ask the school committee, they ask the district and town leaders to advocate. They ask us on the town meeting floor, they ask us in the coffee shop, they ask us wherever they see us, what are you doing from your neck of the woods, so to speak, to address the inequities in how towns are funded and how school districts are funded? We all get these conversations. And so what I want the public to know and the school committee to know is, for whatever it's worth, we are trying to follow the best steps possible. And had we been silent as an organization and as the North Shore educational leaders on this topic, we would have missed an opportunity. So I hope you take a look at it. I hope you do read through the whole thing. I hope you take a look at which superintendents have signed off on it. It's no small feat to get a whole bunch of leaders from one area to agree on something. And I'll tell you, the signatures came flying in pretty quickly on this one. And we've had conversations with Bruce Tarr and our other legislative representatives around this work. I do trust that they're working as hard as they can on this, and the machine just moves slowly. And I would prefer to see change before my 40 or 50th year hits, quite honestly. So, any thoughts, comments about our efforts, about the work?
I think it's great. My question is, where did this go? Who did this get sent to?
So, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education did an open advocacy forum where educators, legislators, community members, anybody adjacent to public education could come and make testimonials and provide evidence that will help them develop a plan and concepts to attack the Chapter 70 formula. I think it's our first and last opportunity as a state to really do this. So it's gone there, and it will go from DESE to the legislature to the state level legislative committees on education, and they will get all of this information, and they'll be able to see the real impact that their funding formula has had on the towns of Rockport and Gloucester.
Was this done to align with or to complement the report, now I'm going to misspeak, that was just put out by the Massachusetts Municipal League or the Massachusetts League of Towns and help me, what is it?
So those,
do you know what I mean?
I do, yes. So those two reports were put out specifically about the funding of, which does include school districts, but really the big picture of town and city formulas, what municipal funding, and how that aspect of public finance is arguably broken. We believed it was important to talk specifically about Chapter 70 because that's really the major gateway for our funding.
And do state superintendents talk with folks at the municipal league? Or?
Yeah, more and more.
Yeah.
I mean, I can even in the small little world of Rockport, like Mitch and I just met yesterday, and we were kind of joking with each other about how much more frequently the two of us are meeting and trying to partner shoulder to shoulder as community leaders. And I think so. I was just at an Essex Tech meeting. All my days are blurring together this week. Monday, Tuesday, might have been Monday. I have to look. So I was just at an Essex Tech meeting to go over their new formula for enrollment. It had to be 100 people in that room for this public meeting from all 17 districts or however many sent to Essex Tech, and there were mayors and town administrators and town managers and superintendents. So I think you're seeing more and more of that shoulder-to-shoulder leadership in high-functioning communities. It's that relationship is important. It's our community. It's our budget. And I think that's important. So, again, I don't know if this advocacy and this testimony changes the world. What I do believe is we have to take advantage of every communication pathway we have to the legislature and to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed so that we at least can say we've done our due diligence. This is the opportunity they offered. We took it. And we think it's well done. And hopefully the other 8 or 9 roundtables across the Commonwealth did the same quality of work. And we hit them with a lot of data.
Are there other comments?
I just really appreciate this work, appreciated reading through it, and I think it also can give us as school committee members some focus when we are trying to advocate, such as the Day on the Hill or other things that we attend, and hopefully all the school committee members from these districts and perhaps other town committees can read this and really sort of get a handle on the issues and how they're distilled in this memo.
So to elaborate on that, now that it's here, right, and you've had your chance to see it through me and it's public, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send the PDF to Mitch, and I'm going to ask Mitch to share this with the Board of Selectmen, Select Board, and with the Finance Committee. I think it's important that they see what the educational leaders in the state are trying to say about the broken formulas in concert with the mass municipal leadership organizations. I think that's important.
I'd also love to see this go back to the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, because when I think about the initial training that we receive as brand new school committee members, charting the course, this is the kind of thing that I think would really add depth and perspective to that training. I think this is excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for that report. That brings us to finance.
None at this time. I think the
We've
budget
done
was
the
it.
budget, that was enough, right? We don't have to do finance as well. That brings us to school committee discussion. Are there any items that we need to talk about? All right, I understand we do have a need for an executive session in order to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining and negotiations with non-union personnel. That means we will adjourn from this meeting to executive session, and we will not return to open session. This does require a roll call vote, and so I think it's not just a roll call vote. I think somebody has to move that we go to executive session and second it. So may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And then a roll call vote. Mr. Lorenz?
Lorenz, yes?
Altieri, yes.
Oaks, yes.
Delisi, yes.
Titlebaum, yes.
Thank you very much. Everybody in the audience, thank you for joining us. Have a really nice evening.
We'll take 5 minutes.